Black Power, comrade. Y'all ready for the book trap? Y'all start tagging people in. Everybody, surprise, comrades. Due to a work contradiction, Chief Dia is unable to host, and with Chief Naya being on her hiatus, I decided to come on live and host today's The Revolutionary Book Trap for y'all. How y'all doing? Y'all share. Y'all, I'm so excited, but also nervous about going live because Naya and Dia set the bar high. So how do you all right, so as you know, we are reading War of the Flea, the classic study of guerrilla warfare. Now, one of the things to consider with this book is that it is written by a colonizer, and so the perspectives provided within this book are of colonizers. So their view on guerrilla warfare is, of course, how to squash, how to put down and eliminate any type of revolutionary or guerrilla warfare, because that impedes their profit. So how y'all doing this morning? Y'all share. As you know, the Revolutionary Book Trap is a fundraiser for the Black Hammer organization, a revolutionary organization for all African and colonized people globally to ensure the liberation and the freedom of African and colonized people everywhere. Y'all got to excuse my little background because, well, okay, I'm trying to watch my mouth because y'all know I got a potty mouth. But I'm in the process of preparing to move, and so everywhere in my apartment was like mad, crazy, messy because we've been purging. We've been, trying to downsize and pack up, and so everything is a mess. So I got this print on an easel so y'all can't see all the crap in the background. And I'm from Texas and we grilled out blinging. All right, yay. So for those of you who may just be tuning in to the broadcast and have not yet started reading the book, this book was written and published at a time where revolution and guerrilla warfare was like hot on the block. Like it was just popping off everywhere. Pow, 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 pow. And a lot of the inspiration for a lot of this revolutionary action globally was Chairman Mao Zedong and what he was able to accomplish in China. And so as we, the organization of Black Hammer, want to kind of rekindle that fervor, that fire for liberation, we are going along and reading this book. The book, is a fundamental resource for those wanting to understand guerrilla warfare. However, like I said, our perspective is different from the author in that we kind of want to take the lessons to replicate it. We are not reading this book for the purpose of trying to eliminate it. Now, just for a quick recap, chapter 1 was basically, breaking down exactly what the phenomenon of guerrilla warfare is. And that guerrilla warfare basically uses popular will, meaning the support of the people, in order to wage a successful guerrilla war, revolutionary war style. Chapter 2 was introduced with a quote from Mao Zedong, in which he says, "The enemy advances, we retreat. The enemy camps, we harass. The enemy tires, we attack. The enemy retreats, we pursue." And so the author Tabor said that quote was key to communist thinking, because in his mind of thinking, that was common sense, to hit the enemy when he's weak, to evade him when he is strong, take offensive when he falls back, circle around when he advances. Guerrillas succeed not only because they know the guerrilla war tactics, but they also have, and they succeed not only because they have the popular support of the masses, the people, but they also succeed because they can't be eliminated by the means that are available to most governments and military forces. So that takes us to chapters 3 and 4, which we are discussing today. And I hope y'all read that back. I really don't want to be talking to myself. I want interaction with y'all. I want to, have a good discussion going. So chapter 3 starts out with a hypothetical representation of how a revolutionary guerrilla war could be incepted and how it would come to be. And then it shows the evolution of an insurgency turning into a civil war. And then in the chapter, it breaks down how the Cuban Revolution came to be in a very similar manner to the hypothetical one that Tabor outlined in chapter 3. And so, basically, with chapter 3, the outline is this. The reason for the revolution exists. There's no way to peaceably come to a solution for whatever the reason for the revolution is. Then revolutionary organizations spring up, an insurrection breaks out and spreads from the remotest province. Then, the rebel bands are then labeled bandits or communists by the government. They do quick attacks. Either a government arsenal is assaulted, a police post is burned, a radio station briefly seized, and then a proclamation is issued in the name of the revolution. Then the aims and the principles of the revolution are then specified and, made known. Okay, Comrade Gallo. So, read that back is where you highlight the portion of the chapter that most resonated with you, stood out to you, made you think, whatever that portion of the chapter is, that's your read that back. So then the aims and the principles of the revolution are specified. Rumors spread. The populace ruminates over what role they could, should, or will play in the revolution. The government seeks to put down the insurrection in a variety of forms. And the government will issue reassurance statements because they got to quell, the anxiety that having any type of disruption would bring to the country. Then the government will seek to quell the insurgency, and then if the insurrection has been well-timed, terrain well-chosen, and the guerrilla leaders competent and determined, that military effort will fail, and then the guerrilla warfare will succeed. So one of the portions of chapter 3 that that's my read that back is on page 27, where it outlines the rebel strategy, where it says, 1, to attack only when assured of success by the overwhelming superiority of firepower, position, and the element of surprise, and only in pursuit of limited objectives, such as the capture of arms, or to create a diversion from some other action, or to avoid encirclement. And then number 2, to use the campaign as an educational tool and a propaganda weapon by disclosing the impotence of the enemy, showing that he can be defied with impunity. And to, okay, y'all know I only like big things coming in and out my mouth, but let's just break some of this down into just plain layman's English. To talk to the people and stir up support among the rural population by identifying with its grievances and aspirations and putting the burden and the blame of bloodshed on the repressive government as the clear aggressor it will necessarily become in the course of the anti-guerrilla warfare. Anti-guerrilla campaign. So, does anybody have a read that back for chapter 3? Thanks for all the hearts, y'all. Okay, does anybody have a read that back for chapter 3? What I really liked about chapter 3 was how thoroughly it outlined the stages in which a revolution will take, before it goes into a full-blown revolution, and how it outlines the actions. If y'all don't have another read that back, another portion that I liked was when it details in full how the Cuban Revolution was able to be so successful. What I liked was that some of the things that they did in Cuba could be replicated, in countries that have a similar outlook, because one of the things that they did in getting the people to be amenable and agreeable to the thought of this revolutionary war was that in Cuba, they went into Las Montañas de Sierra Madre. Wait, was it Sierra Madre or was it... let me look in the book while I'm trying to do everything from memory. Sierra Maestra. They when they went into the mountains, that the mountains are like rural, less densely populated than like the cities and things of that nature. And one of the first things that they did to win the people to accepting them is that they killed some bandits that were terrorizing that mountain area. They killed some bandits that had raped and robbed. So they pretty much took the concerns and the complaints of the people that were being neglected by the Cuban government and said, look, we're going to establish some law and order, and, raping people and robbing people, that's not cool with us. And they essentially became like, yes, Cameron, that's a grill. I'm originally from H-Town, where we gets it down with them grills, baby. That Paul Nelly. Let me see your grill, your grill. But anyway, getting back, they won the people to them by eliminating the threats that would harm the people, which were the rapists and people that were causing other types of harm to the people. So does anyone have a read that back from chapter 3? Okay, so the summation of chapter 3 is basically that it was a war based upon gradually wearing down the government, wearing them down in such a way that globally the Cuban government was seen as weak, and they acted in such a way that they gained the support of people not only within Cuba but globally. And so at the first sign of Batista's regime about to collapse, a lot of government officials and big ups in the government, they fled the country. Okay, yay, we have some read that backs. Comrade Gallo, how come this is not letting me see the whole content? Okay, here we go. Now it's letting me see the whole comment. In the circumstances, it is hard to see what he could have done short of exterminating his own people and burning their villages. He was helpless. In the extremity of the final months, a few military commanders in the field, subsequently executed as war criminals, began to wage such a scorched earth campaign. Read that back. By then, it was far too late. Yes. See, that's one of the things that is emphasized in guerrilla warfare. In guerrilla warfare, the guerrillas, they can act with impunity. However, governments, can't just, embrace some of those tactics of just outright slaughtering the people that they think, they may be the guerrillas, they may be sympathetic to the guerrillas. The government can't just go out there into a rural area where they think, you know, that is a stronghold for the guerrillas, and just outright just bomb and raze that whole community. The government can't do that. And so that was a good read that back, Comrade Gallo, because that is why guerrilla warfare is so successful for revolutionaries, because we can do things that the military and the state, they can't act in that manner and still be solvent. And you have to recognize that one of the priorities of government is to remain economically solvent, to have a good reputation globally so that they can continue to make their money off the backs of the people. Okay, Chief Rob has a read that back. Let me see what it says. As it becomes clear that the government can no longer maintain order and cannot suppress the insurrection, the revolutionary tide begins to rise and swell. That is a great read that back, Chief Rob. And one of the reasons why is that a lot of times in the beginning of a revolution, people are fearful. They don't want to be aligned with, you know, any type of action that might bring more harm. Especially like if you're already poor and oppressed, you know, you don't want to bring more negativity your way. And so once the masses begin to see that, hey, you bout it, you bringing in that work, then the popular will increases, and more people are won to the cause. You know, when they see you out here doing that work, they're like, oh, okay, y'all bout it, let me join in, you know, let me join ranks. And so, you know, that's how revolutions are won. You know, when you are able to have the confidence and the support of the people, because you're going to need the people. You know, when you're you know, trying to reconnaissance, you know, the actions of the military and things of that nature, the community is what's going to keep you hid. Like they're going to let you, you know, be in their house, be in their apartment, you know, let you map out your next actions. So yeah. Okay, so that's chapter 3. If no one has anything else to add to the conversation, share this in all your groups, all your little political groups, your Hotep groups, your blurred groups, wherever black and colonized people congregate. Share this video. All right, so now we're into chapter 4. Okay, so in chapter 4, the author details how protracted wars or wars of long duration are out of necessity for most revolutionary organizations and revolutionaries. And then it also details the lessons from China. So, in the beginning of chapter 4, he says, revolutionary wars are generally of necessity wars of long duration. The seeds of revolution are slow to germinate. The roots and tendrils spread out silently underground long before there is any sign of sprout or bud. Then suddenly one day, like new wheat springing up in a cultivated field, there is a blaze of color and overnight growth. The rebels are there and they are everywhere. What we learn from China, when it's outlined in chapter 4, is that yes, popular revolutionary forces can defeat military armies. A non-industrialized nation can defeat an industrialized nation by guerrilla warfare. Industrial nations stress having arms, logistics, and manpower, yet Chairman Mao Zedong stressed having time, space, and will. Mao believed that the Revolutionary War itself was the university for guerrilla fighters, and that in doing revolutionary acts, you gained the knowledge of how to be a successful revolutionary, because you learn what works, what doesn't work, and then you're able to tailor your actions accordingly. Political mobilization is important. You're raising the political consciousness of the masses and actively involving them in the revolutionary struggle. That is the first task of revolution, is getting that political mobilization. You want the masses to understand why the revolution is necessary. You want them to understand your aims and principles in carrying out this revolution. You want to break it down to where even the most, even the slowest, I hate using that because that sounds so ableist, but even the most unlearned would be able to grasp the political aims that you're trying to carry forth. And then Chairman Mao also believed that time was important. Not only having the time to, have time for political mobilization and actively involving them in the revolutionary struggle, but you also need time in order to allow to develop and then also to expose the weaknesses of your enemy. It's like you need time to, really analyze and critique your enemy and know, okay, we can't just go off half-cocked. We need to know exactly how this enemy breathes and moves, what their strengths are, and then have time to figure out ways to overcome those strengths. You need to know what their weaknesses are so that you can take advantage of those weaknesses. And then Mao, he broke down his theory of guerrilla warfare into 3 phases. The first phase was a strategic defensive, which is to force the enemy to spread itself as thinly as possible and to harass the enemy all along the line and assess the enemy wherever it is weak, and then concentrate all available guerrilla strength and power to annihilate inferior enemy units one at a time. Then the second phase would be a period of equilibrium where, based on that first phase, you've attacked your enemy, you've stolen munition, ammunition, weapons, artillery, and you've now strengthened. And so in this period of equilibrium, you and your enemy, you're kind of at a stalemate and can only contain you. And then the guerrillas, they can't destroy the enemy and continue to harass and take advantage of lulls in the conflict. They can continue to strengthen both in number and also in arms. Then the third phase is the revolutionary strategic offensive, in which the revolutionary strategic offensive, which is a general offensive that begins when the guerrillas are capable of confronting and destroying the enemy in open battle. So, where's the rest of my notes? So, so in chapter 4, when it comes to protracted war and how most uh, most guerrillas and revolutionaries, they want that protracted war because they need the time, space, and the will. Because when you have the will, when you have the time, you're able to bring the will of the people to you. It takes time to build people to want to become part of the revolution. And sometimes you have to cede one of the three in order to gain another. Like how it says... It says that, sometimes the that you will cede, land or territory that you had taken over. You'll cede that to the enemy, so that way you have more time to regroup and come back stronger. On page 48, it says, in analyzing the Chinese situation, Mao notes the contradictions and conflicts of interest that arise on several planes. For example, between the various imperialist powers seeking dominance in China within the Chinese ruling classes, and between the ruling classes on the one hand and the broad masses of the people on the other. 1. Conflict among the warlords and against the nationalist government creates a heavier burden of taxation. 2. Heavier taxation caused the landlord class to exact more exorbitant rents from the peasants and increase the hatred of the latter for the landlords. 3. The backward condition of Chinese industry as related to foreign industry and foreign concessions in China causes more vicious exploitation of Chinese labor and drives the wedge deeper between the workers and the Chinese bourgeois. Because of the pressure of foreign goods, the exhaustion of the purchasing power of the workers and the peasant masses, and the increase in government taxation, more and more dealers in Chinese-made goods and independent producers are being driven to bankruptcy because the reactionary government, though short of provisions and funds, endlessly expands its armies and thus constantly expands the warfare. The masses of the soldiers are in a constant state of privation. Because of the growth in government taxation, the rise in rent and interest demanded by the landlord, and the spread of the disasters of war, there are famine and banditry everywhere, and the peasant masses and the urban poor can hardly keep alive. Because the schools have no money, many students fear that their education may be interrupted because production is backward. Many graduates have no hope of employment. And Mao concludes, once we understand all these contradictions, we shall see what a desperate situation, in what a chaotic state China finds herself. We shall also see that the high tide of revolution against the imperialists, the warlords, and the landlords is inevitable and will come very soon. All China is littered with dry faggots which will soon be aflame. The saying, a single spark can start a prairie fire, is an apt description of how the current situation will develop. We need only look at the strikes by the workers, the uprisings by the peasants, the mutinies of the soldiers, and the strikes of the students which are developing to see that it cannot be long before a spark kindles a prairie fire. So, yes, when you have all these different grievances brewing within a country, then it's only so long before all of that comes to a boil. And then, as he says, a spark will kindle a prairie fire. So, in this text, now faggot has become a derogatory slur, but in this usage, it's the old language in which a faggot was a bundle of twigs and sticks that were used for firewood. So I'm kind of curious about how faggot became a bundle of firewood to it being a slur for gay men. Like, was it like a play on words, like a bundle of sticks, bundle of dicks to spark off a fire? Like, I don't know. I just like to I like to think about the etymology of words and how they evolve. But anyway, I see we have a lot of comments here. Comrade Gallo says, I thought this highlights how you can't defeat the people if we united without turning everyone against the state. And then I think this is Comrade Chief Rob's, read that back for chapter 4. Political mobilization, raising the level of political consciousness of the people and involving them actively in the revolutionary struggle is the first task of the guerrillas. And then Chief Rob has another read that back in which he says, so Mao's military problem, how to organize space so that it can yield time. His political problem was how to organize time so that it could be made to yield will. Yes, when it comes to Mao stressing time, space, and will, a lot of times what happens in a guerrilla warfare, it's like you have to cede one to gain in another. Like, or you have to gain in one to gain in another. Like, gaining more time will allow you to increase will. Sometimes ceding, space or territory that you've come to control, sometimes you might have to cede some of that so that you have more time in order to regroup and also to hone your military tactics so that you can be the most successful. Comrade Gallo has a read that back, which says, yet in the case of the actual colonies, it will not be a matter of discrediting the colonial power or its government, but simply of taking the profit and prestige out of colonialism. Cyprus provides a good example of an insurgency that was successful simply because terror, sabotage, and constant disorder made the island too unprofitable and politically embarrassing for the British to remain. They got out, finally, not because they were forced out, but because there was no longer any compelling reason to remain, and there were many good reasons for withdrawing. Yeah, you gotta, when you look at these conflicts, governments and the state, they're going to be looking at this in a matter of dollars and cents. And they're all about the money. So if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. And so when you have a colonial, is that right? When you have a colonized country or area, they only want to maintain the hold on that colonized entity as long as it is making them money. Now, with Cyprus, that was an area that made them money by tourism, that made them money in various ways. But once war breaks out, ain't nobody trying to travel there and vacation there, and then when war happens, now you're on a global stage. The world is watching. They're watching how everything is going on. Black Power, Comrade Robert Benny. And, when you are losing popularity on the global stage, like other countries, they decide, they ain't fucking with you because, you got this war popping off. They're wondering whether, okay, should we stay in trade with you because you have this, insurrection going on? Is that causing you economic instability? Are you going to be able to make good on your loan payments? Are you going to be able to make good on your trade agreements? Things of that nature. So yeah, once the revolution, or well, actually in that case of Cyprus, once that war is more costly than it is profitable, then the colonizer is going to cut off and allow that colony to go free. That is why you see, like, for the U.S., the U.S. is a global imperialist power where, we have, caused so much turmoil in so many different areas around the world. And so when you look at Cuba, once Cuba got free, then that sent a shockwave through to Washington, D.C., because they were like, wait a minute, what if Latin America decides that they just want to pop some stuff off? And so you see that in South America specifically, how the CIA had, wreaked so much havoc and caused so much turmoil in making those countries unstable, because with all that instability, and the people in a state of turmoil, it's hard for them to come together and get to the stages of revolution where they can unite and band and cause, a counter attack to the U.S. But because of all that instability that the U.S. created, is how we had that mass migration from South America to the U.S. And it's like, people were like, oh no, all these people are coming here, and oh no, what are they going to do, and da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, if you didn't want these people coming here, why the hell were you wreaking havoc in their country? They wouldn't have had no reason to come here if you didn't abrupt their state of being. It's like, if you allow them to maintain themselves instead of it, introducing all this conflict and war and, fueling all these different, entities and things, they wouldn't have had a reason to migrate here. So, I mean, it's just, it's really crazy, how one of the things is, the reason why the U.S. has been able to manipulate and to cause so much chaos in all these other countries is because when you are an invading power, war is profitable to you. I mean, if you look at the history of the U.S., we've pretty much been at war, like, for the entire existence of the U.S. being a country. Google it, fact check it. Don't believe anything I say. And the reason why we have been able to sustain a constant state of being in war is because the war has not been on U.S. land. It's always been in another country. So, most of the people most of the people, are like, you know, they don't see, how profitable war is for the U.S. because we have all these companies that are U.S. companies that make the tanks, make the planes, make the ammunition, make the military gear that people wear and stuff like that. So all these companies are lobbying to Congress like, yeah, we need to keep this war going. We need to keep this war going in order for them to keep their profits up. Now, where war is not profitable for a state, a government, is when it's happening in your own shit. Like, like with Cuba, Batista was fighting guerrillas, in their own country. So, they couldn't afford to just, continuously be at war, because for a government or a state, the quicker you can put an insurrection down, the better, because, that's costly. That's costly to be at war in your own land, because you, as the government, as the state, you are responsible for keeping your citizens safe. And you are also responsible for protecting all the assets of the country. Like, you have to make sure that trade continues. You have to make sure that, all these different things. And so, when you're a state fighting in your own country against your own people, you're also kind of limited in the interactions you can have with your own people, because you want the support of your allies, the other countries in the world, that you want them to support you and continue to do trade with you, continue to interact with you. You do not want to jeopardize your money. So, for a state, a government, you do not want a prolonged war. Now, if you are a guerrilla, a revolutionary, yeah, you want to drag that shit out as long as you possibly can, because the longer a revolution goes on, the more time you, as a revolutionary entity, have to expose the contradictions that are taking place in the country. Like, you can, like with Cuba, how they exposed, the different contradictions, and they were able to gain support from the global press and win more people to support what they were fighting for and what they were about. And I see that, both of these chapters, both the highlighting of, how quickly Cuba was able to, quickly in relative terms, in regards to war, able to gain their independence. And then when you look at a more prolonged war, as in the case of China, when you look at these two different styles, it's like we can see what we can tailor to the United States. Like, we can, and I'm not going to talk too much on this live, because I don't need the state knowing how I'm thinking and moving, but I can see how this can be practical here in the U.S. One of the things about this book, like I said, this book was written from the perspective of a colonizer. So, of course, the colonizers are reading this in order to suppress and eliminate any threat to the state. However, as African and colonized people, we can read this as a textbook or a blueprint on how we can create this in in the here and now. And there are many takeaways that are, you know, are able to be replicated. And so, let's see, Rye has a comment which he said, also, the longer a revolution goes on, the less feeble the proletariat force comes off globally. That's right. The longer you are at war, the public perception of the revolutionary is now, oh, they're actually a power to be reckoned with. It's like, oh, they, you know, this is not some fly by night. This is not some, you know, little uprising. This is actually, you know, a force to contend with. And so that is a good point. That is a good point. So chapter 4 ends with two highlighted points on tactics. Well, actually, this was points that Mao had made. And so on tactics, Mao said, in guerrilla warfare, select the tactics of seeming to come from the east and attacking from the west. Avoid solid, attack the hollow. Attack, withdraw. Deliver a lightning blow, seal a lightning decision. And on politics, without a political goal, guerrilla warfare must fail, as it must if its political objectives do not coincide with the aspirations of the people, and their sympathy, cooperation, and assistance cannot be gained. The essence of guerrilla warfare is thus political in character. And that's why it is so important that for us as an organization, the Black Hammer organization understands that we cannot be liberal, meaning we cannot go off based on emotion. When it comes to a revolution, we know that we have to first educate the people. It's like, what is it? Agitate, educate, agitate. So it's like, it's steps to this. You don't just immediately go in guns blazing. First, you have to educate the people. And so that's why we do so much political education as an organization. We have this, the Revolutionary Book Trap, in which we discuss different revolutionary texts in order to gain our revolutionary understanding, increase our knowledge. And then we also have propaganda, in which we analyze different media in order to show how they are tools of the state in order to manipulate your mind in thinking based upon these various media that you consume for entertainment. Because remember, everything that you read, hear, or see when it comes to music, books, movies, etc., it always has an underlying propaganda. There's always an aim to why things are done or expressed in a certain way when it comes to the books, the music, movies, all of that. There's always a underlying propaganda for it. And then we also, if you are a part of our organization, we also have the last Sunday of every month a political education that's called Forging the Hammer, where we take the time to really deepen our revolutionary theory and also increase our knowledge. So there are other ways in which we want to give political education to the people. There are podcasts and other things in the works. And we cannot do any of this without the support of the people. So that is why, we as an organization are so transparent. We make our meetings available to the public, so that way you can see how we move and operate. And that way, if you are in alignment with what we do as an organization, then, we ask for you to go to www.blackhammer.org/sign-up to join us. If you feel like, what we do is valuable to the people, then, you can go to the Black Hammer website and, set up donations, because maybe you are at a place where, for your livelihood, you can't align yourself with a revolutionary organization, but you see the value in it and you do want liberation for the people. Then, you can go to blackhammer.org and set up a monthly recurring donation to the organization. And then, a lot of times people, when it comes to joining revolutionary organizations, they, want to see what you're about before they align. And then a lot of times people have questions about, the principles and the aims of that organization. Well, we at Black Hammer are kind of unique. Well, I won't say kind of. We are unique in the fact that we accept, people regardless of, your ability, whether you're differently abled or, whatever, you're welcome here. Regardless of gender presentation or expression, you're welcome here. Regardless of sexuality, you're welcome here. And that's something that's unique within a lot of revolutionary organizations, because a lot of revolutionary organizations have a very heteronormative, a cis heteronormative outlook, and they are usually led by men with a very narrow and toxic view of masculinity and, people in general. Whereas the Black Hammer organization was founded by queer identified people, which was one of the reasons why I decided to join, because I was like, I am tired of, a lot of these revolutionary organizations that say they are for the people, but it's basically a tool for them to be an oppressor to those most oppressed, which are women, disabled, and queer identified people. So if you enjoyed this live and you think that, it's something that should continue, and you find that, it is a relevant resource in your revolutionary development, then, our cash tag is $BlackHammer.org. For the book club, our cash tag is $BH Book Club. And then again, the Revolutionary Book Trap serves as a membership drive and fundraiser for the Black Hammer organization. So please go to www.blackhammer.org/sign-up to join us today if you feel like you can unite with what we're about. And then, donate. And if you are a colonizer, no, you cannot be a part of our organization, but you can set up your monthly reparations. It's like, if you a colonizer, pay me what you owe me. Don't think that I forgot. Bitch better have my money. And that's that on that. I think I am over time, but I really enjoyed doing this live with y'all. I thank y'all for being so supportive and encouraging, because y'all know I'm not really about being in front of the camera like that. And make sure that you continue to share. We want because if you're not in a place where you can donate, you sharing the video gives us a greater reach, where the more eyes on our posts and things allow us to maybe be viewed by someone who is in a position to give the resources. And another thing, a lot of times people, might be hesitant to join because they feel that they have to already know this stuff. And the thing is, no, you don't. It's like, I'm 48, and a lot of the stuff that we're reading, I read before, but I read it in a neo-colonial mind frame. And so having this opportunity to read some of this stuff again and come at it from a revolutionary lens, I'm learning just like, you possibly may be. So don't feel that you have to, already be Huey P. Newton or Shada Shakur down in order to be a part of the organization. That's why we do so much political education, because we want to meet you where you're at, wherever that is. And that is why we also don't have any type of restriction on, how you contribute, how you are a viable member of the organization, because we realize that oppression is very damaging to the psyche. And so a lot of us, we just mentally, emotionally, spiritually aren't in the place to do much. But whatever that little bit is, when we have many of the masses doing that little bit, all those little bits equal a lot. And so don't feel that, you have to have a PhD in revolutionary theory, revolutionary science. Don't feel like, oh, well, I'm just the poor working class. That's the people that we want. We want the people at the bottom, because the people at the bottom that have boots on the ground of experiencing what it's like to be under the boot of this imperialist power, y'all are the ones that come up with the brilliance on, how we should move, what would be a benefit to the community, what, will swell the ranks, so to speak. So, again, Black Power to my comrades and everybody viewing. Again, thank you for being so encouraging and supportive of me doing this this live with y'all, and allowing me to allow my little book dragon to fly with the Revolutionary Book Trap. And so continue to share. And thank you all so much for tuning in. Black Power. And like Chief Ghazi always says, check that melanin. Y'all have a blessed Sunday. Make it a Black Soul Day. Y'all make sure that y'all are abiding by the guidelines that we put out concerning that Rona, COVID-19. Be mindful of the elders, because coronavirus has an incubation period that they're thinking, they're not really sure because they're still learning more about this novel coronavirus. They think the incubation period is 1 to 14 days, and they're not sure whether in that incubation period people are contagious. Now, if you don't know what the incubation period is, an incubation period is from when you contract a virus or disease and when you start showing symptoms. So with this COVID-19, the incubation period is 1 to 14 days. And what they're seeing globally is that most people start exhibiting symptoms by day 5, but it varies. So be mindful of that. Make sure that you are protecting the most susceptible members of your household and your community. That would be the elders and the people that are immunocompromised. The people that are immunocompromised are people that already have an underlying condition that would make catching this on top of already having underlying conditions more severe. So your immunocompromised people would be people that are living with HIV/AIDS, your people that are living with cancer, your people that already have cardiovascular disease, your people that are already dealing with respiratory illnesses such as COVID, asthma. You want to be careful of the people that have diabetes or other conditions. Those are just a few conditions that you need to be mindful of, when you're, moving in these streets, in relation to this coronavirus. Now, the hardest hit people will be the elders, the people that are 60 and above. However, your immunity starts decreasing when you hit age 40. So that's why my black ass, being 48, has been in the house since all this shit popped off. Because with my health conditions, I have to be careful of who I come in contact with. I said, they don't know if this virus is contagious during the incubation period, and a lot of people won't know they have it until they start exhibiting symptoms. So you want to be mindful of that as you go to work and do your daily activities and things of that nature. So what you want to do is, if you do have people that are immunocompromised or older in your household, when you come home from work, you need to immediately strip down what you are wearing. Put that in a bag. And then, if you have a washer and dryer in your house, then wash that shit immediately. Or, leave it tied up until you can go to the laundromat. You want to get in the shower and scrub down your whole body, head to toe. You want to make sure that you are washing your hands at regular intervals. You want to wash your hands, especially after you toilet, because they are saying that COVID-19 has been found in fecal matter. So you especially want to be washing your hands after toileting. You want to wash your hands before you touch your face. You want to wash your hands after you touch your face. You want to wash your hands before you interact with somebody that also, before you wash your hands, you want to wipe down your phone, because it doesn't make any sense for you to wash your hands and then pick up your dirty phone. Your phone, that you've been handling all throughout the day, and things of that nature, as you at work or at play or whatever you're doing, that is a hotbed for germs and bacteria and viruses and stuff like that. So make sure you wipe down your phone and put it somewhere clean. Set it down somewhere clean, so that way after you wash your hands, when you pick up your phone, you're not recontaminating yourself. So with all of that said, thank you all for tuning in. Black power, like Chief Gazi says, check that melanin. Y'all be safe out here and do not panic. Do not panic. Black power.